Welcome to episode 146. And if you have HR tasks that are living on sticky notes or inside your head, then today I'm going to show you a simple way to move from what seems like an endless people to-do list to having actually a clear people strategy so that you can find, grow, and keep great people. So I'm going to talk through the difference between HR tasks and a people strategy, the 3 outcomes that every small and medium-sized business should aim for, how you can use a 5-step planning framework and you can have that done within 2 hours, and then having an execution plan over the next 3 months. So let's start with tasks versus strategy. Now, a lot of owners and senior managers don't have a people strategy. What they have is a list of tasks. So things like we need to renew contracts, we need to write position descriptions, fix the onboarding checklist, hire a new person, find a performance review template, update the policies. None of these are wrong. It's just the problem is that without a list, the direction never ends and sometimes it just never gets done. Whereas a people strategy answers 3 questions. What do we want our team to look like and feel like in 12 months? What needs to be true for that to happen? And what's the smallest set of actions that are going to make the biggest difference? And when you have answers on one page, then decisions get easier. You'll have consistency. You'll stop reinventing the wheel. You'll stop going from what feels like crisis to crisis. And this is where having a people strategy really does pay off because it takes you from reactive tasks to intentional action, and that will support your revenue, operations, your customer experience, and overall your business goals. So 3 outcomes that matter for SMEs. Now, you can write a complex people plan, but you don't need to. I believe in keeping things to the most simple level. And so for small and medium-sized businesses, 3 outcomes will cover 90%. And you may not be surprised to learn, I'm going to give this to you in a Find, Grow, Keep framework. So the first is finding great candidates. We attract the right people in, we have a fair and consistent process, and the person that we hire understands the role, the expectations, and our values on day one. That means that also our hiring manager knows what good looks like. So we've got consistency in that recruitment process. Outcome 2 is that we're growing our people faster, which means that new starters reach confident performers sooner, managers have simple rhythms for feedback and coaching, and leadership capability improves without taking managers away from their day-to-day work for days at a time. And outcome 3 is that we're keeping our best people for longer. People know what's expected, they feel supported, they can see how they contribute. Performance conversations are normal. Our values are visible in our daily behaviours. And so retention improves because our employee experience improves. So everything we build within our people strategy can come back to those 3 outcomes. So an easy way to do this is with having just a 5-step planning framework. So you can build a first draft of your people strategy in just a couple of hours using these 5 steps. So step 1 is define your 12-month people goal. So this means looking at what is the 12-month goal for your business, and then what does that mean that your people and culture needs to look like? And just write one clear sentence that links people to business priorities. So as an example, it could be, we're going to scale to 40 people across 2 sites without losing our customer satisfaction score. We're going to build a dependable sales and service team with predictable onboarding. We're going to reduce voluntary turnover in year 1 through better hiring and coaching. Just keep it simple and specific. 1 sentence is usually enough. And then that's the heading on your 1-page plan. So step 2 is actually, what's your current reality? And think about it across Find, Grow, Keep. What is working that we should keep, what's missing or unclear, where are we just wasting time or taking unnecessary risks? So, for example, undefined. Are our job ads the same as everyone else? Because if they are, we're not going to attract the right people. Does our interview process change manager by manager? Because then we're not consistent with who we're bringing into the business. Are reference checks rushed or not structured? In Grow, it could be that our onboarding varies. Our new hires learn by guessing. Maybe our goals are not clear or they only exist in the owner's head. It could be that managers want to coach, but they're not confident in doing so. And in Keep, maybe it's that we have processes and policies, but no one can find them. Perhaps our one-to-ones are irregular and we're just talking about tasks. Perhaps performance issues are avoided until they get really big. So once you've done that, just choose 3 priorities, and you may choose one under each of those find, grow, and keep pillars. And we want to keep it to 3 because it just limits the chaos. It forces us to focus. So, some practical options in that. Find could be that we're clarifying role outcomes, we're writing more motivating, different job ads. We're introducing a 2-stage interview process with a short case study or work sample. Perhaps we're building a hiring pack with the advert, the selection criteria, the question bank, and a scorecard so managers are going to interview consistently. In Grow, let's get that standard onboarding. We want to onboarding like McDonald's. So in 90 days, everyone knows what everyone's doing. Maybe we're teaching managers a short coaching model and giving them conversation guides, enabling them to practice having difficult conversations. We're running short leadership development workshops on feedback and expectation setting. In Keep, perhaps we're introducing one-on-ones. We're refreshing our policies in plain language. We're setting up monthly pulse checks and we're sharing actions back to the team. So once we know what those are, our 4th step is to turn each priority into a tactic. And a tactic is a small, repeatable approach that produces a reliable outcome. So for example, find tactic could be to have a structured interview process and work samples. And then we're going to write down what's the purpose of this. So the purpose is that we want to hire for skill and values fit in a consistent way. So that our steps are role scorecards that define success. First interview screens for values and core skills. Candidate completes a short work sample. Second interviews reviews the work sample, test decision making, and then the hiring team uses a simple scorecard with examples before making a decision. So once we know what that looks like, then we can assign it to an owner. So that could be the hiring manager, and the measures of success. So in that, it could be things like time to offer, quality of hire after the first 3 months, candidate feedback. And then in Grow, if we're going to look at our onboarding, so our purpose of having a consistent onboarding process is we want to get new hires to confident performance faster. So our steps, day 1, week 1 checklist, buddies assigned, manager and new hire creates 3 simple goals. We have checkpoints at 7 days, 30 days, 60 days. We have conversation guides for managers for coaching and feedback. So maybe the owner of that is your people lead in the business or your HR consultant. Your measures around that is the time for new hires to get to competency, the amount of new hires that pass through probation, the feedback that we're getting from our new hires at 30 days and 90 days. And then in Keep, okay, we want to do our one-on-ones, we want to have quarterly goals. So our purpose is to build a regular rhythm for clarity. So our steps could be 15-minute one-on-ones every 2 weeks with a consistent agenda. Quarterly goals that are just limited to 3 goals per person. A short monthly team meeting to celebrate wins and review progress. And managers using scripts to praise and set expectations. So the owner of that could be someone within the leadership team. The measures could be the amount of one-on-ones completed, the achievement of quarterly goals, the engagement pulse checks. So it's just thinking about what is it that is going to really push the dial, because the more that we can get this strategy in place and have goals around it, the less likely we're going to have a whole bunch of tasks that we have to do. And once we put this on a page and share it, then we let everyone see this is our 12-month people goal. These are our 3 priorities and their tactics. Here's the owner for each one. Here are the measures, and here's the review date. Because when we're sharing that, people start to understand, can come on board. Maybe they can also help. It starts to anchor our decisions. If we get a request for something that's not on the plan, we need to decide, well, do we want to do that? Is it important enough to change it out for one of the existing things, or does it need to wait? So we want to make sure that we have the plan, but then we need to execute it. So we want a 90-day plan to actually make sure that we're executing. And this can pair well if you have ongoing HR support services, so you can keep that momentum if you don't have internal HR. So that's where, in the first month, you're just getting those foundations, you're communicating, you're talking about your plan, making sure that everyone understands what their roles are in that. So month 2, we should start to have implemented at least the first 2 tactics. So we're checking how we're going. Is that in place? Where are our blockers? What are we doing next? And then month 3 is when we're launching anything that's still left into the plan. And again, we're asking for feedback, looking at what's worked, what needs adjusting. And then we can get the 1-page plan back out, say, okay, well, what's the next quarter's focus? So by the end of month 3, we not only have that strategy, but it's living, it's already achieved things for us. So you can run this internally. Many smaller businesses prefer a partner. They go to HR consultants like us at Amplify HR to help them to save time, reduce risk, and keep that momentum. But there are things you want to keep in-house, and there are things you may want to outsource. So things you're keeping in-house are things like the actual decisions around who to hire, who to reward, what you believe in as a company, your daily leadership behaviors of one-on-ones, demonstration of values, actually showing the stories and how you bring those to life. The things that you outsource are things like compliance and policy checks, hiring packs, structured interviews, scorecard documentation, the design of your onboarding process, manager coaching, leadership development workshops, pulse checks with your staff. So, there can be a mixture of things that you're keeping internally and things that you're using an external HR or internal HR partner if you have one. But the important thing is just having that regular cadence for strategy and actually looking at what is our plan, and then every 3 months, actually making sure, didn't we achieve, and what do we need to do next? Now, you do not need complex software to run this. Depending on the size of your business, you can start with shared folders, checklists, toolkits, and use software when you're ready and when you grow. Sometimes we get so caught up in the software that we don't actually do the process. So if you don't have software, don't worry about it. Just start the process, and then maybe software will come later. And this is part of what builds a culture. When we have our people processes consistent, that helps everyone to understand this is what we're trying to achieve from a people culture perspective. So being intentional about these things is only going to help us to have a great culture. So if you're ready to move from a to-do list to a people strategy, take these steps this week. Write your 12-month people goal in 1 sentence. Choose 1 priority, each under Find, Grow, and Keep, and turn each priority into a tactic with an owner and a measure. Put everything onto 1 page and then book in a review with your leadership team. Schedule the month 1 actions. Lock in some manager practice sessions for coaching and one-on-ones. And then remember, if you want a partner to move faster without missing the details, then an outsourced HR provider like Amplify HR can help. We provide HR outsourcing, ongoing HR support services, and on-demand HR that can fit small and medium-sized businesses. And we will help to co-create your 1-page plan, build your hiring and onboarding tactics, coach your managers so the change will stick. Now, if this episode was helpful, You can follow this podcast. You can share it with a fellow business owner or manager who's also building their team this year. You can also show us the love by leaving a rating or a review over Apple Podcasts or Spotify. Episodes are released on Mondays, so click subscribe and you'll be notified of when it's available. Thanks so much for joining me. If you have any feedback, questions, or ideas for future episodes, head on over to amplifyhr.com.au or connect with me on LinkedIn and we can start a conversation.